This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Sports Catastrophe on this day will not be seen due to the lack of efforts of May 30th and May 31st. So don't expect it on this day on May 31st or even June 3rd. Jeff has just told me that those days are boring. Stay tuned for a special presentation. As the deep voice, that definitely isn't my deep voice because my deep voice is worse, has told you that due to the lack of efforts of finding a good moment for on this day for both May 30th, May 3rd, and May 1st, and doing some research into June and finding June 3rd not having a good moment, that basically there's going to be some days that will only have one video be uploaded for that day. However, I've decided to do something much important. This is an Indy 500 retrospect. Now, you may want to maybe thinking, why are you doing something on the Indy 500? Simple. It is May the 30th. It is the running of the Indy 500 this fine day, and I'm going to watch the Indy 500 because, sports. What can you do? Now, normally it would be part of the holy trinity of auto racing, like Monaco, the Indy 500, and the Coca-Cola 600. That's a NASCAR race. Would actually be the three races to watch. Unfortunately, Monaco decided to do it last week, so I am going to be keeping my eyes open on the Indy 500 and the Coca-Cola 600. Well, mostly because this is the first time those two races have been run the same day in 2 years, because 2020, was ruined by COVID. So anyway, I decided to do an audio video on my memories of the Indy 500. Now, it would be weird being Canadian and all that I would know much about the Indy 500, but, doing research is not that easy. So, anyway, here we go. So, from what I know, the Indy 500 started in 1911, and basically there were, it was all brick. The raceway was all brick until the 1960s, that there was a lot of brick on the straightaway, on the final straightaway. But because cars were starting to crash over them, they decided to only have a yard of bricks at the finish line. So basically, that's the only way. It's now brick. It was an all brick speedway. Now it's not. So anyway, the Indy 500 has had some very famous names and some very famous accidents. In my research, I found a few people who have done YouTube videos, including one guy who did every red flag at the Indy 500 from the 1970s to 2018 or something like that. So basically, it was amazing that this guy had the red flag. Now, red flag means the race has to stop for some sort of reason, either for weather delays or for massive crashes. I'll go with the macabre stuff first and then lead you to the happy stuff. So anyway, one of the most famous Indy 500 crashes, the oldest famous one, was 1955 when Bill Vukovich, two-time defending champion in Indy 500, spun out and basically flipped his car over the retaining wall on the right-hand side. Now, if you look at footage from the 1955 Indy 500, Indianapolis Speedway looks a whole lot different today than it was 60 plus years ago. So basically, yeah, it was a bad accident that I've seen and all that. Saw the footage for. Many other drivers have died in accidents and all that. There was one with, I think his name was, the name goes Eddie Saxon and Dave McDonald, or is it Dave Saxon and Eddie McDonald? Well, Saxon McDonald in 1964, the massive crash there at Indy 500. And 1971 was one of the most cursed, or was it 71 or 73? 73, pardon, was one of the most cursed Indy 500s of all time because of the weather and the fact that two massive accidents happened. On the day of the race, the Indy 500 got off to a fast start, but then basically there was a massive pile up and all that. And 11 cars got involved in it. In fact, one car suffered a massive crash and all that. And its fuel tank sprayed like a sprinkler all around
the track. Worse was that the retaining walls between the spectators and the track were not that high in place because spectators were sitting a little too close to the action, closer than they normally are, than they are now. But basically, two female people, watchers of the race, basically got sprayed with fuel and all that. That's terrible and all that. I remember one name was Salt Walter. I think it was Salt Walter who was the guy. I thought I would remember that. But basically, yeah, it's not that easy to remember things sometimes because when it comes down to it, your memories are sometimes a little too bad. So just going to uh, check. I can't remember who the guy was because I know Salt Walter was one of the racers. I wonder if that was the first thing in 19, the first red flag or not. Hang on one sec. I'm just trying to. Okay. Let's see here. Just quiet you down. All right. So yeah. So there was a lot of things happening and all that. So yeah, there was a lot of yeah. 1973 was one of the most cursed races because of that crash to start the race and all that. So yeah, 1973. I really want to finish this off and just tell you about it. I think it was the Salt Walter crash because I can't recall anything else. So yeah, Salt Walter was the guy who was in that accident. And then comes the fatal crash a couple of days later of Sweet Savage. That's who it is. Sweet Savage is the guy. After a bad day of rain, Sweet Savage was going to be poised to take the lead partway through the Indy 500 when they got underway on the Wednesday. But unfortunately, Sweet Savage crashed his car into the wall and basically suffered massive burns and all that. His car was really totaled. Worst of all was that a track worker was run down by one of the ambulances at at Indianapolis Speedway. So of course that guy obviously died. Sweet Savage would actually survive at first, but then die in July of 1973. So yeah, that was huge. 1982 saw a big crash on the first lap of the race as Kevin Cogan somehow turned right into Mario Andretti before the race started and basically crashed himself and Andretti out. Basically, AJ Foyt was pissed off with how, Kogan's inexperienced, and they thought that Kogan did it on purpose. But why would he do it on purpose? I mean, he had nothing against Mario Andretti. Maybe he was just nervous. Well, the inexperience of Kogan in the race led to things. He would get blamed. He would have a chance in 1985 to win the Indy 500, but he failed. Other massive crashes. 1992. Well, I already did the 92 Indy 500 in a video about a week ago, but basically, yeah, Roberto Guerrero's spinning out on the pace lap, and he was the pole sitter. That was terrible and all that. But 1996 was also terrible. There were a few massive. Well, 92 was one of the most fatal 500s of all time because of like what three drivers died or something. I don't know what happened. Too many crashes to count. Then in 90, I would have said 93, but I had it. 96, Scott Braden was the three-time defending pole sitter. So basically, he was the pole sitter, and then he practiced, and then he crashed to the wall and died on the track. It was pathetic, don't you think? There were many other crashes. I can't remember if it was 2017 or 2018 when Scott Dixon went up for that massive crash, and it was like amazing. Like, how do you survive all that? The safety stuff these guys do. In fact, 2011, the end of the Indy 500 was marred by a crash. J.R. Hildebrand was a rookie, and he was looking to win the Indy 500, which is rare for a rookie. I think only 6 people have done that before. And then basically, he was trying to outpace a lapped car, and then somehow he smashed into the right side of the wall at turn 4, and Dan Weldon won the race. There are people who said that Dan Weldon was jinxed, was they put a curse on Dan Weldon for getting rid of Hildebrand, and unfortunately, the jinx happened to be fatal in the Las Vegas accident in 2011, which claimed Dan Weldon's life. But that's neither here nor there. So anyway, how about some great Indy 500s moments of all time? You may be asking. Yeah, let's go with the good stuff. Well, I know AJ Foyt in 1977 became the first driver to win the title 4 times and was nice. 1981, Bobby Unser was involved in a controversy that they thought that Unser had passed some cars incorrectly coming out of the pit lane. But that controversy took 4 months to settle, and Mario Andretti was supposed to be the 1981 champion, but no, it was Bobby Unser. And people were pissed off that Andretti didn't get his due. In fact, Andretti had the big Andretti curse. Mario, Michael, and Marco didn't really do so well. Mario won the race in 1969, but since then, don't talk about it. 1982 had a great race between Rick Mears and Gordon Johncock, but Johncock won by 0.16 seconds. 1992, as I did a video on it, was the closest finish ever, and Al Unser Jr. beating Scott Goodyear to the line. 93 was, on this day in 1993, May 30th. Emerson Fittipaldi won his second Indy 500, but he made a gigantic faux pas. The tradition of drinking milk while winning the Indy 500? Well, guess what? He decided not to drink milk. He decided to drink orange juice from his harvest stuff. Basically, Fittipaldi would get massively booed during much of the 93 kart season because of his faux pas at the Indy 500. 95, of course, I did a video on that a couple days ago about Jacques Villeneuve beating Scott Goodyear because Goodyear made a bad move. And, Goodyear's team actually realized that Goodyear did make faux pas, so they didn't challenge the ruling. It was nice seeing Helio Castroneves go back-to-back, basically with the Spider-Man crawl after his wins. I always wanted Paul Tracy or a Canadian to win other than Villeneuve, but I was disappointed. 2006, Marco and Michael Andretti were fighting, but then they were taken on the line by, I would say Kanan, but I'm wrong. I don't know who took them out. Briscoe? But anyway, yeah, those races. I got to see Takuma Sato's championship for Japan, and I was happy as punch. Yeah, the Indy 500, it's been a wild ride for me. And, being from Canada, it just is weird. But, I like the Indy 500, like it or not. Hey, I'm a Canadian that loves sumo wrestling, college football, rugby, and soccer. So, what do you expect? I'm weird. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.